To the RHS Chelsea Flower Show.
Welcome back to Chelsea. The medals were handed out yesterday and there's still a buzz of celebration in the air.
Certainly is. And today we're going to meet some of the award winners and bring you inspiration for your gardens from across the showground.
Now, whether your borders are bursting, you've got a couple of window boxes or just room for a houseplant, there really is something for everyone.
Welcome to the RHS Chelsea Flower Show 2023.
Hello and welcome. Now, Angelica, I can't believe we are already halfway through the week here at Chelsea. It is rushing by.
It goes so fast, but so many friends and family are having a great day and absolutely loving it. And there's still so much more to inspire you, and our team of experts are standing by to share all their best tips and tricks for you to try at home in your gardens.
Coming up this week, Carol's shining a light on the hidden treasures of the plant world that we often overlook.
Today, I'm going to be looking at bright and beautiful euphorbias. In yellow, green and orange, they come in every shape and size. And there's one for every spot in your garden.
I'll be revealing the winner of the Best Balcony and Container Award, and Toby's back to help you get the Chelsea look. Today, he's got loads of ideas for your smaller spaces.
I'll be taking inspiration from the award-winning designs at the show to give your balconies, containers and window boxes that Chelsea pizzazz. And you can do it without breaking the bank.
Plus, I'll be chatting to a musical icon, legendary singer and songwriter Kim Wilde later about how gardening has transformed her life.
And Chris will be showing you how to get more bang for your buck when choosing your flowers this summer.
But before all that, I've stepped into the Samaritan's garden designed by Darren Hawkes. Now, on first impressions, it can be tricky to see how the main show gardens can relate to our own gardens at home. So I've pulled in the help of our very own 7-time gold medal winning designer, Adam Frost.
Thank you for that, my dear.
So lovely to be here, Adam, because this is the first time I've been on this garden. And you want to take inspiration, but where do you start?
Atmosphere. That's what these are all about. They are about atmosphere. You think what Darren's done, the first thing is to make you feel slightly uncomfortable. When you look at this space, that's exactly what he's done.
For me, I want tranquility, but do I need perhaps more drama?
I think, do you know what, it's about maybe taking you on a journey. So it's understanding your own garden, the way you move through it, where the light is, where the shade is, how you feel in different spaces.
This pergola.
Yeah, but you could do this with arches, bits and pieces.
I love this effect,
yeah.
Absolutely love it.
But also remember with Darren, what he's done here is the plants in there were spiky, and now we're coming out into the light, and it just starts to all soften off a bit, and it opens up, and the mood changes, doesn't it?
So really it's about creating different atmospheres for different parts of your garden, even if you've got a very small garden, which a lot of us have.
Yeah, and I would always work out, where would I want to be? Where would I want to have a cup of tea in the morning? If you do that in your own garden, you're on the way. And then what Darren's done here is put really good boundaries in. If you see timber boundaries, and they're dark, so the planting shows up very well. He's used sculpture really heavily, which might not be everybody's cup of tea, but he's told a story because it starts really rough and then it starts to soften, places to pause,
yes.
Be, water to enjoy.
And I love this, the way it sort of sweeps around, and also the different levels of steps. It isn't terracing, but it's sort of getting that effect.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is all concrete. You know, and it doesn't feel like that, does it? So, you know, what he's done is used the levels well. So by the time we get to this end, feeling uncomfortable here, do you feel comfortable now?
This is my sanctuary. I love this part. It's like a retreat.
So all he's actually done is taken us down about 3 foot and he's tucked us in under a tree. And the whole mood. And that is really easy. It doesn't have to be as big and as bold as this. It could be a chair under a tree at the bottom of your garden.
Yeah.
You know, it could be a pause by a pond. Whatever, but it is driven by atmosphere.
Thank you, Adam. And of course, you're going to be joining us for today's Chelsea Clinic.
The butterflies I have already.
Nah, we're going to put you on the spot, aren't we? Now, this week, Carol's hunting out the unsung heroes of the plant world that don't always get the attention they deserve. Today, she's putting beautiful euphorbia centre stage.
Euphorbias? But surely this is a cactus stand. Yes, it is. but within it are one or two euphorbias, and this is one of them. This is Euphorbia fimbriata, this lovely prickly object here. The Euphorbia family is immense. There are more than 2,000 of them, and most of them come from the tropics or the subtropics. That certainly applies to this one. It's from Madagascar. It won't stand any frost, so it needs to be kept under glass. But that glass can just be your window. Keep it on the windowsill and it'll be perfectly happy. Now it's a fascinating wheelie bins, but this Euphorbia copes brilliantly with that. It's Euphorbia amygdaloides, variety Robii. Absolutely excellent if you want good ground cover. It'll amble about here and there, and it goes beautifully, like most euphorbias, with almost anything. So if you've got a shady spot in your garden and perhaps the soil is on the poor side, this Euphorbia could be just the one for you. Beside this purple alder behind me is one of my favourite euphorbias. It's Euphorbia palustris. Now palustris simply means living in a marsh, and that's exactly what this loves. In the spring it makes these vast clumps, sometimes up to waist height. And the first thing you notice when you walk into the garden, and it's not a plant just for one season either. In the autumn, its foliage changes to all sorts of glowing oranges and ambers and golds. As those stems start to fade down, I often get my sharp secateurs and cut back some of the stems. But invariably when I do, I wear gloves, because all euphorbias contain an irritant sap, and you mustn't let it get on your skin. It's herbaceous, which simply means that it dies down and then lives under the soil until the following spring. It's no wonder I'm getting euphoric about euphorbias, because after all, there's a euphorbia for everybody's garden and every situation. In fact, there are probably several.
Every day this week, we are celebrating some of our award winners here at Chelsea. And I'm on the Feels Like Home garden, which yesterday was named Best Balcony and Container Garden.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Don't drop it.
Well, congratulations, Rosemary. You are beaming. It means a lot to you, doesn't it?
It does, it does. It's just, after all this hard work, and it's been a dream for a long time as well to come to Chelsea, so I'm just over the moon.
I love your theme. It's all about nostalgia, isn't it?
Yes, and it sort of takes, it's a kind of a love letter to New Zealand, really. It's taken me back to my childhood garden, growing up in New Zealand. I've got the sort of colours and textures of New Zealand, the natural materials, lots of ferns. New Zealand is big on ferns. Yeah. And it's about, you know, just creating it wherever you are living in the world.
And this is a native timber with it,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, this is kauri, and this has been reclaimed from a bog in Northland in New Zealand and then restored. It's such a beautiful wood.
So in a way, we can all do our childhood memories in our own spaces to get that peace and tranquility.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you want people to take home from this that they can apply to their own garden?
Well, it's not a big space, so you can do anything, whether you're renting or you own. You know, you can create your own little personal haven and oasis in a small space in just pots. It's amazing.
Well, they're bold pots. I love that.
Yes.
You know, so then you can be, you know, have some big brash plants in there, and I like the backdrop as well. That allows the greenery to pop.
Yeah, and that's a charred timber. It's actually Pinus radiata from New Zealand, so there's a little link there as well. But also it's a nod to the modern architecture of New Zealand. So, you know, change a wall, create something beautiful as a backdrop.
Well, congratulations again, Rosemary. Thanks for the chat.
Thank you.
Now, all this week, Toby is bringing you some inspiration from the world-class designers here at Chelsea, so you can give your own space a bit of a zhuzh. And you know what, today? He's very much going up in the world.
If you're after big ideas, even for the smallest of spaces, the place to come and find them at the Chelsea Flower Show are the balcony gardens. If you don't have a lot of room to work with in a garden, well, the detailing is everything. And in the St George Alight Here balcony garden, the details are just fabulous and also so clever because none of them need break the bank. So much of this garden is upcycled. I mean, this is an old set of shelves turned into a plant theatre along with the fernery. And it's the planters that I really like. you notice how they're all at different heights because they're all made from different vessels, and some of them are just upcycled, wow, things you might find in a skip. And who would have thought a giant industrial bin could be transformed into something that, well, looks so good? Again, a good depth of soil, that means shrubs can grow in it, so you get real height in the garden. So what was something for rubbish is transformed into, wow, a piece of art. Sometimes in a garden, it's not the size of space that matters, but what you do with it. And the doorstep library garden is a perfect example of continuity. All the materials in it are timber. Very aptly for a garden about a library. The planting has been bookended, and it's such a simple principle to copy. Keep the centre of a small space open, makes the garden feel bigger, and you've got useful room in the middle. Behind the ferns, there are mirrors. Now you can pick these up from charity shops, and they'll create the illusion that your garden is twice the size that it is. And I particularly like this. Though you might not get flowery petunias growing in the shade, you can get maidenhair ferns. Wrap up the root ball in a bit of compost, hold that in place with chicken wire and hide the wire under moss. And you've got these beautiful sort of oriental themed planters. Yeah, perfect for a shady spot. The restorative balcony is full of neat and tidy ideas for small spaces. I mean, shelves, they're not just a storage solution, they bring plants up to eye level where you can enjoy them. And if you can put them up in the house, you can put them up in the garden. I also love the pergolas. They bring your plants up out of the ground, above your head. This is just a simple L shape of timber fixed to the wall and the ground. But it's the planting. I mean, this has got cottage garden charm in spades, isn't it? And all these things are easy to grow just for the cost of a pack of seeds. And when you take a perch behind them, yeah, sure, you're on a balcony, but it feels like you're in a country cottage garden in the sky.
Wow, some great ideas there. And we've got lots more still to come today from the RHS Chelsea Flower Show 2023, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset. In today's summertime swap shop, Mark shows us how to try out different shrubs that will ensure our gardens survive and thrive for years to come. Adam will be back to answer your gardening questions when he takes the hot seat in today's Chelsea Clinic. And James has a beginner's guide to growing plants that wildlife will love. It's a great way to get the children involved in gardening. But first, our special guest today is fast becoming almost as famous for her love of gardening than for over 30 million records that she sold worldwide. I'm delighted to be joined by Kim Wilde, and welcome back to Chelsea, Kim.
Oh, the greatest show on earth. I love Chelsea.
We are so lucky, aren't we, to be sitting here in this magnificent garden.
Yeah.
But
Privilege.
being next to you, it's a little bit of deja vu because we worked together. Now, what was it, late 80s, early 90s in the music industry?
Yeah, I was doing Top of the Pops and you were doing everything else,
well,
weren't you?
I was happy to work with you during those times. But what I didn't realise, I was your publicist or your plugger in those days.
Yeah, you
that
were.
you had this passion for gardening. Was it on the back burner?
It was on the back burner, really. I mean, I loved the countryside as a small child, and I loved that everyone was growing vegetables and flowers, but it didn't really hit me till I had children, and I wanted to make them a garden, somewhere to grow up in and be as enchanted by as I was as a child growing up.
I mean, it really did change your life, going from this extremely successful pop star and writer to suddenly finding this whole new career.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing, really. I stepped out of the music and I got into horticulture, really just out of a private passion. Started back in education, went to Capel Manor to study a little bit about plants. And then before I knew it, I was at Chelsea Flower Show doing a little courtyard garden with my co-designer, Richard Lucas.
And winning a gold medal, can we just say?
Yeah. And we did so well.
You did.
It was magical, a really magical time. And it still is. I mean, I've been in the garden, I was in the garden all day yesterday.
Tell us about your garden. What's it like? Paint the picture.
Okay, well, it's There's a wildflower meadow. There is an area where I grow a few vegetables with varying degrees of success. And then I have an area of grasses and late summer flowers like echinacea. And then I have, I'm a bit of an old-fashioned girl and I love my cottage garden. I absolutely do. Verbascums and delphiniums, lupins, aquilegia. I love it. I just love a cacophony of colour and plants. I love plants.
So what's it like when you're on tour? Because you're doing so many festivals, you're on tour next year. Is it just relaxing to come back, or do you worry who's looking after it while you're away?
Well, my daughter's quite helpful. My son can be a little bit helpful. And just recently I did get involved with getting a gardener back into the garden. I haven't had any help with the garden for quite some time. That's made a big difference and it's a real luxury. I'd rather have that than a row of expensive handbags. I can tell you that.
I am with you.
Or even shoes. I mean, I'd really rather have someone help me in the garden. But I'm very much in the garden. As soon as I get back from tour, anywhere, that's the first place I go and see what secrets it's going to throw up at me. I mean, you forget what you plant, you forget the bulbs that are going to emerge. You know, you forget what plants do, and it's amazing. You think, oh, I'll remember that. You actually don't, and then they'll surprise you, or like this winter, they'll die on you, which has not been very nice.
We hopefully have all the answers for you here at Chelsea.
Yeah.
So if you've got a dilemma, what are you going to be looking out for while you go round?
Well, I have a few places in the garden where stuff just died over this winter. The cistus died, the hebe died, the pittosporum. So I'll be looking for something that's easy to look after because I'm away a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want anything that requires too much intervention.
Well, hopefully we're going to get you lots of lovely answers. So take your time, enjoy the gardens and see what expert advice you can get in there too. Thank you, Kim.
Oh, real pleasure, Nikki.
Now, many of us love to fill our gardens with beautiful flowers, but gardening can be a bit pricey. So Chris has been to meet the growers to show us how to get the most out of the plants we're set to buy at the garden centre this weekend.
I'm sure we all love nothing more than going to our local nursery or garden centre to get some new plants for our garden. But we are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. So I want to find out how we can make our existing plants go a bit further. And where better to do that than right here at Chelsea. Vicky, hello.
Hi.
I've been going around looking for ways to save money on your gardening. Have you got any tips for us?
Well, as you can see, I'm surrounded by all my lovely hostas. When they get big or mature, you could divide up that clump and share it around your garden. So something like that, I would literally just tip it out the pot, give it a little tap, hold on, there we go. So I could divide that into 3 immediately without a problem. Just prise away the roots. And I give it a little jiggle, and as you can see, it pulls away. Then repot it. Give it a little bit of feed, especially this time of year, and it will just thrive.
So it's not only good for your pocket, but your hostas will thank you for it too.
They will absolutely love you for it.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, I'm on the hunt for tips and tricks to help us save money when it comes to gardening. Have you got anything for me?
I would recommend using seed, particularly calendula, lettuce and strawberries. They're a lovely way of getting maximum return for your money.
Much cheaper to buy than a more established plant. Is it difficult to grow from seed?
The good news is that the plants know what they're doing even if we don't.
Just follow their lead, do we?
That's exactly right. Sprinkle them onto a compost, add the water, step back and enjoy.
Amazing, thank you very much. Well look, that's been fabulous. I wish you the very best of luck with Chelsea. Katie, you've got a beautiful display of dianthus and pinks here.
Thank you.
If I had one of these in my garden, how can I make it go a bit further?
Okay, well, the ideal way and the easy way is to take cuttings from it. What we would do is we would take a young non-flowering shoot.
Yep.
Take off all your lower leaves here, and then you would snip cleanly underneath a leaf node here. And you would simply put it in your grow medium, so you can take several cuttings then along the side, water them. In about 6 weeks, you're going to get a new rooted plant.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris.
Now I feel as if I've been transported to a fantasy world. This is the Teapot Trust Garden, inspired by a child's imagination. It's like Willy Wonka's factory, The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland all rolled into one. And I'm here with the designers, Nicola Semple and Susan Begg. And look, the teapot is right there. I need to be at a tea party. You're very welcome. Now this is all about a child's imagination, isn't it?
It is. We designed this garden to show the power of the imagination to help children with chronic illnesses, how art therapy can help them find a pathway and come to terms and find coping mechanisms. But it is a garden of the imagination. So we've incorporated lots of drama inspired by children's literature. So for example, we have these Pioneer Abbeys in Versa. They're actually, it's a sort of a weird and wonderful version of the average Christmas tree. So it's a tree that everyone knows.
Yeah.
But it's got this amazing form. This one we've called Snorky, and this one we've called Grizzly. So these are actually quite normal trees, just with a funny, weird and wonderful shape.
Looking like monsters.
Yes, that might get up in the night and snuff around your garden.
Yes, and we've used a lot of colour. Colour's very important, and it's something that often people are afraid of in their gardens.
And that awakens your senses, isn't it? When you see colour and it just makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. There's such joy in the sort of sugar rush of colour at the front of the garden. All the yellows and the pinks clashing together. Don't be afraid of a clash in your own garden. That's where excitement comes from.
I like the touch elements and the water, the sounds.
Yeah, we've worked really hard to get visitors to take them back to that childhood sense. That's what the sound and the touch elements that we've brought in are all about. We have created some magic in the garden. We have a watering can rose at the front of our garden and a soundscape. And if you speak into the watering can and talk to the garden, it talks back to you. And you'll notice there's movement across the garden. And I mean, all week we've just loved watching how people react to this. It takes them much deeper into the garden. They start to smile. And you can see already they're saying, what's going on? And it's exactly that sense we want to inspire of people.
Now, this garden is going to be rehomed, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's going to the Royal Hospital for Children in Glasgow. It's one of the first places that Teapot Trust gave art therapy to children. And it's one of the biggest hospital campuses in Europe. And we're so lucky to have a site there, a much larger site, and a permanent home for the garden. So it will be year-round art therapy for children in the hospital who can visit the garden. We're hoping in time to fundraise for an art therapy pod there too.
Amazing. So the joy of this garden will be benefited and enjoyed by lots of other young people.
Yes, that's the idea.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, we all have our favourite plants and flowers. I know I certainly do. But do you ever stop and think about which ones are most loved by the wildlife in your garden? Throughout the week, James Wong is encouraging us to get growing. Today, how to choose plants that will give pollinators a helping hand.
Planting up a green space to help support pollinators is a theme that's just running through the show this year. But here's a secret that very few people will tell you. Pretty much everything that you and your family can do to help support pollinators will also give you a more beautiful garden with less work. One of the easiest ways to ensure that your garden appeals to the maximum number of pollinators is to really increase the diversity of flower structure and form that you have. And that's because different pollinators have different preferences. So for example, this geum here, which is in the rose family, a completely open flower, has really different architecture to, for example, the lupin that's in the pea family with its hooded shape. And the really useful thing from a human perspective here is the more different types of flower, shape and structure you have, the more visually interesting it is for you to look at. Avoiding over-manicuring your garden and letting it run a little bit more lush and wild will provide habitat for all sorts of insects. And of course, not using pesticides will mean you're not killing any off. So simply not bothering to spend time and money doing those two things will give you better results. So there's this really handy trick to maximize the amount of food for pollinators in every single flower in your garden. And that's just by picking single rather than double flowers. And I'll explain what I mean by that. This beautiful cultivar here has really retained the architecture that's found in wild roses. So right in the center is where the pollen and nectar is found, bee food. Now, all the way around here, I mean, this is just advertising these petals. It's almost like having the box of cereal and the cereal's right in the center. Now, over the years, rose breeders have bred roses with mutations to produce ever-increasing number of petals, and that creates these really showy hybrids like this. These are called double flowers, really dazzling, but it's just lots of box and no cereal. And all sorts of plants have had the same treatment, from water lilies to dahlias, meaning all these diverse and wonderful plants have ended up looking a little bit samey and aren't quite as good for bees and butterflies. So for my money, simply by picking single flowers, not only do you get stunning visual results, you get better food for pollinators. There are very few things in life where the best option for the environment is also the simplest and, frankly, the most beautiful. But that's the wonderful thing about horticulture. You can absolutely have it all. And with simple tips and tricks like this, you can really supercharge the ability of your plot to support pollinators.
Now, there are some parts of the garden that are trickier to manage than others, and shady spots are certainly one of them. And I'm hoping Lynn here has the answers to making sure our plants thrive in the shadows. Hello, Lynn, because in a way, that's a great way to explain it. Plants that can thrive in the shadows, because well, so many of us have shady gardens. I've got a wall, and the plants there probably see the sun for maximum 2 months of the year.
There's a whole palette of plants that you can use. All you need to do is determine the light levels that you've got. Is it full shade? Is it partial shade? And what's your soil like? Have you got some moisture there, or is it quite well drained and so it feels a little bit dry? But once you've established those, then there's a whole palette of plants that you can use for each of those conditions.
So really look at your garden, and so many of us do have these shady spots, and work out what the conditions are like.
Yep.
Your display here is beautiful, but it's actually divided into sections. Can you explain that for me?
We've divided it into full shade and partial shade, and also into a well-drained soil, plants for well-drained soils, and plants where they've got some more moisture at the soil, so moist soils as well. So hopefully the visitors will be able to see the quadrant that relates to the conditions they have in their own garden, and see the plants that would be useful for them.
It's really clever. Give us a top line then. We've all got shade, but we've got dry shade. What would you recommend?
One of our favourite plants for dry shade is geranium phaeum. Flowers about this time of the year, although some of the various cultivars will repeat flower through the whole of the season. Superb pollinator plant, so we'll bring in the bees as well.
That gets a big tick in my book.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about wet shade? So many people going, I wish I had dry shade, mine's soaking. What can we grow?
One of our favourite plants is the geums or guiums that are just behind you. Tend to range in yellows, oranges, reds, but they've started to bring some paler, sort of lemony shades in, and also some pink varieties, so there's lots to choose from there.
Lovely. There's bursts of colour. And what about wildflowers?
We have valerian in our partial shade. Again, a fantastic pollinator plant, scented, will self-seed, so absolutely superb.
So not throwing shade, but loving shade. Lynn, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Looking around the showground here at Chelsea, many of the beautiful floristry installations and displays are packed full of dried flowers this year. Today we're joined by floral designer Hazel Gardner with everything we need to know about this latest trend. It's great to see you again.
Great to see you, Angelica.
I have always loved dried flowers, but there is a certain way to do it properly, isn't it?
Yes, there's definitely tips and tricks I can tell you to make sure they still look great once you pick them and you want to bring them inside for drying. So first of all, when you pick them, you want to make sure they're actually dry. Then you want to find the right room to do that. That's normally something which is free from daylight, that's a really nice temperature, room temperature's fine, no direct sunlight, and yeah, just somewhere that they're going to really dry out nicely but not too brittle.
Is it best to hang them upside down?
Most flowers work absolutely fine by hanging upside down. Flowers such as hydrangeas, you can actually just dry them in the vase. That's perfect. Yeah.
So we've got some varieties in front of us here. Let's talk through them.
So we've got beautiful delphiniums, which you've got there. You can see they hold their colour really well. Lovely. So gorgeous. Yeah. And then we've got poppies, which I just love for like a statement. Then we're onto Achillea, and you can see actually the colour is really not that much difference from dried to fresh.
So do you have to think about bold colours because it does fade?
Yes, it does fade. So you really want to aim for colours that are bright. So fuchsias, reds, mustards, yellow. Anything that's vibrant outside will tend to still keep its colour once dried.
So what are we making today?
So today we're making a beautiful summer wreath that's really full of texture and colour.
Yeah, really nice. Okay, well you've been busy this morning and we're going to get a step-by-step guide to how to create it.
So the first thing you want to do is to attach the string to your wreath frame. I'm using a natural base today. This is willow. So what you want to do is attach your string. You can use floristry wire, but I want this to be fully compostable. Give it a good tie, like 2 knots. And this isn't actually going to come off until we finish the design. So just remember, this always stays on. So to create the wreath, you basically are making mini bouquets. So what I do is I've got an amazing range of materials here. And for my base, I want to create something quite sturdy. So I want to make sure that I'm using maybe grasses, or this is where you use your foliage. So that's just going to act as a really nice structure for everything else more delicate to sit on top of. And then final flourish is when you add I add the largest headed things. So this is teasel and this is Achillea. That is your first mini bouquet. So essentially, making a wreath of this design is you're laying on bunches right to left, right to left. This is my first one, so I'm going to start to the left. I've got my string, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I wrap it round. So that's my first one. And you can see quite quickly that we're getting a design. So then it's all about repetition. Now the larger items I tend to do every other bunch, just to give them a bit of space. I may not want to add them into every bundle. Again, I'm always checking to see where things sit. Feel free to play around with what you have at home. It's all about experimentation and just having an experience with the dried flowers. Make sure you have, I'm using floristry scissors, but you can use secateurs. And then all I'm going to do is go back on, so add this in the other direction. And you can see it doesn't take a lot to actually make a really, really beautiful dried wreath. Something you can do with children, it's super, super accessible. And essentially this is it, you're just building up the wreath, step by step, bunch by bunch.
So here it is.
Here it is.
Yes, nearly time to finish it off.
Yeah, so I thought a nice thing for you to do would be add the finishing touch, which is a bow.
Okay, brilliant. So how do you care for this?
So you want to make sure that the temperature in the environment's right. So you wouldn't put it anywhere near a direct heat source, such as a radiator or an open fire. So normally just somewhere, front room that's out of the direct sunlight, that's kind of perfect.
And then how long does it last?
So if you look after them really carefully, they should last up to 2 or 3 years. Some varieties might fade a bit quicker, but the beauty of this is you can kind of swap things in and out, which is really nice. You don't want to make sure that you're touching it too much, because actually our hands have a lot of oil in.
Yes.
And then if you want to dust them, you can use a hairdryer, cold, low temp, and just gently blow the dust away.
Ah, very, very creative. Now, none of us can have escaped that our weather is changing from drier, hotter summers to wetter, cooler springs, and it's stressing our gardens out. But what can we do to help? Well, we may need to consider swapping some of our border classics for some tougher cookies. In today's summertime swap shop, Mark's looking at shrubs.
Shrubs are the backbone to our borders, but they also give us many, many seasons of interest, and they're a great foil for the rest of the plants in our gardens. With our hotter summers and our wetter winters, many of our stalwart shrubs are having real problems in the garden. But the great news is there's a wonderful variety to choose from. For a drought-tolerant shrub that's going to flower for months on end, you cannot beat Cistus. Just look at those gorgeous blooms. That incredible magenta 5-petaled flower and that lovely splash of raspberry right in the centre. These open cup-shaped flowers are perfect for the birds and the pollinators. Cistus are really easy shrubs to care for. All you need to do as they go over, that means when they stop flowering, just prune down to the next set of flowers or the next set of leaves. And it's as simple as that. They do spread a little bit, so just trim them to shape, and that way you can keep your plant flowering for months on end. A great neighbouring plant is this gorgeous Phlomis with those silvery, hairy leaves that bounce back the light. It can get quite woody, so you want to trim this right the way back so it can grow back into a lovely, compact shrub. The definition of a shrub is a plant with woody stems, and this is a perfect example. This is Euonymus alatus, or the winged spindle. Now at this time of year, it's beautiful with this really bright green leaf and these stunning lime green flowers. In the autumn, this shrub really comes to life. The leaves turn the most gorgeous shades of fiery red, and then the fruit, it has this lovely pinky red fruit that splits open just like the winged spindle name, and then inside is this lovely orange seed. This is a cracker of a shrub. A spectacular shrub for drought tolerancy is this, Ozothamnus silver jubilee. It has that lovely silvery stem and then these rosemary-like leaves. Now this comes from Tasmania, Australia and even New Zealand. So here in the UK, it's sort of half hardy. If you're down in the south in a nice sheltered garden, this will be absolutely fine, as long as you've got really good free draining soil. And the name Silver Jubilee comes from that lovely silvery stem and the rosemary-like flowers. The main thing about Ozomanthus is that when it comes to pruning, you want to prune immediately after flowering. Just take off about 1/3 of the plant, and that way you're going to keep it as a nice, dense shrub. Even though us gardeners have to cope with an ever-changing climate, there's a shrub at Chelsea for everyone.
Now, earlier on, I met up with the lovely Kim Wild, who wanted to solve a gardening dilemma of her own. So we sent her out into the showground to meet the growers. Let's see how she got on.
Mary, I love your stunning foxgloves. Some of them look a bit familiar, the ones that grow in my garden, but many don't. Tell me about those.
Oh, right, well the ones you're more familiar with will probably be the really tall ones that we've got at the back there. They tend to flower down one side of the stem. That's our Digitalis purpurea family. Then you'll see there's lots of pockets of colour of all the other ones that you're noticing this year. And they're beautiful new hybrids that have been bred to produce a much longer flowering season.
Generally speaking, a foxglove like this, they don't flower every year, do they? They set seed and then they make leaf and then they don't flower.
Yeah. That's our native form, the Digitalis purpurea. But when the seed drops into the ground, it needs an undisturbed place, so you don't want to be in a very dense border or things like that. Ideally, if you have got them flowering in your garden, you can harvest the seed yourself. But if nature's doing it, it drops seed into the ground, somewhere where there's dappled shade, where it needs light to germinate. And then they'll start to germinate around about sort of August, September, October time. But a foxglove will always put itself where it wants to go, not necessarily where you want it.
Where you want it. I have noticed that. Hey John.
Hi Kim.
I followed the yellow brick road and it brought me to your beautiful garden.
Perfect, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about these Achilles. I've grown a few in the garden myself, but I've never been that successful growing them. They look kind of like anyone could grow them?
They can indeed, as long as you get them in the right position. So they need to be in a nice open sunny position with soil that's free draining. They don't like to have wet feet. so you need to have a good free draining soil. And the yellow is a nice, robust variety. It's a short variety, so it's not going to get blown around in the wind and tolerates most conditions, especially hot summers.
Gorgeous, and they look really lovely with these blue geraniums here. A sort of complementary colour, and they're both like those similar conditions. And you've got other colours there. You've got lovely rosy ones and peachy ones. Are they a bit trickier to grow, or is this the easier one to go
Yellow's
for?
quite a good one. It's a dominant colour. Bees love it, so they see in ultraviolet, so they'll come into the garden. And we just find that the yellows tend to be a bit stronger. The other colours are all good, but the yellow tends to be the toughest one out of the pack.
Beautiful. Well, it's all looking stunning, John.
Thank you.
As is Chelsea, as always, huh? I'm going to go off and discover.
Perfect.
Have a lovely day.
You too. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
bye.
Great, we could help Kim with some ideas for her garden.
Well, now it's time to open up our midweek Chelsea clinic, and today our very own award-winning Chelsea designer and gardening guru. Did you write this, Adam? He's in the hot seat, ready and waiting to answer your questions.
7 gold medals. That should be on your rider, shouldn't
to be
it?
fair, officially, this is now my Chelsea highlights.
It is.
Look at this.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the Chelsea clinic? Should we get started?
Yeah.
Okay. Susie on Instagram says, my azalea plant is in dappled shade by other trees and it's not happy at all. It doesn't produce many flowers. Now, is it worth moving? What position do they generally like? And is there anything she can do to help it?
Right, point one, it sounds like it's in the right place, dapple shade. Remember, they like slightly acid soil. So test your soil, because it might be in the wrong soil. But think about last year. Last summer is when they wanted to form their flowers, and we had such a horrendous year. So it might have got a really good knock last year. Give it a mulching, cross your fingers, hopefully you're done.
And be patient.
That's gardening.
It is. Angelica.
Well, I've got another Susie here who made her headband herself for the first time. You look wonderful. What's your question?
So my question is, I walked around Chelsea today. There's quite a lot of things that would have previously been considered weeds, like cow parsley, buttercups, and now in the planting. So why is that? Why do you think there's been a change?
It's environmental change. You know, a lot of designers are understanding we can play our part in the garden. Weeds are, in reality, really tough plants. You know, ultimately, you don't want a monoculture in your garden, but that adding a few weeds and the cow parsley bits, that develops that diversity, and that's what you want.
Okay,
all right.
Thank you.
So from weeds to ants, Lou Painter on Facebook says, I'd like to know the best way to get rid of ants. I keep finding massive nests, particularly in my pots and planters, as well as my lawn. I can't get rid of them and they're driving me mad.
This is an organic gardener, so I just got to leave them alone. I mean, they are part of an ecosystem, you know, so they will eventually get eaten and whatever. But if you want to get rid of them, disturb them. They don't like, you know, being sort of upset, but also they don't like damp conditions. So if you've got a compost in a pot and you want to add something like composted bark that might just hold a bit more moisture, they'll get the hump and they'll eventually move on.
They'll get the hump. Lovely.
They'll get the hump.
We like
and
that.
they'll leave your pants.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
hello. Angelica.
Right, we've got Jean from East London here. Hello, what do you want to ask?
I have a peony, which I've had for 4 years. Although it's looking really healthy, no buds. Do I get rid of it or?
No, don't get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. I mean, really, when you think about a peony, it loves sunny conditions, so check the sunny conditions.
Yeah.
But also, they don't like being too deep. So what I did last year is I put too much mulch around mine.
Okay.
So I've got lovely foliage come up this year with no flowers. So I'm busy scraping all the mulch away. So as long as your tubers are close to the top, give it a feed, water.
Okay.
And hopefully next year you'll be smiling.
Oh, thank you.
You're going to give it a go?
Yes, I am.
Let us know how you get on.
You are in really good company with Adam there. Thank you so much for joining us for the Chelsea Clinic. We've had so many questions in, but thank you for answering those. It really does make a difference, doesn't it?
Different. And I learn as well, you know, because I love being here and I want to plant my own stuff as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're allowed back.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. But the Chelsea Clinic will be open again tomorrow and Toby will be here to answer your questions. So do please keep sending them in because we love to hear from you.
We certainly do. And we'll be joined by Strictly Star and social media sensation Joe Sugg on how to get your teenagers offline and outdoors.
Yes, and Sophie and Joe will be back here on BBC One tonight at 7 o'clock when they'll be opening up the vote for the BBC RHS People's Choice Award with none other than AJ Adudu.
And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, everyone, we're filming.